Hi everyone. So we're totally winging this now because I just joined Cheryl for the scheduled session where they were going to talk to me about my journey, why I left the corporate world and some of the lessons I learned and how I got out my own way and stuff like that. But we've had some technical issues. So the only answer is now to wing it, for me to jump in live. Cheryl, when she joins, don't do lives very often. Cheryl, you're on. So this is a big terror barrier moment for me. I don't do lives. I don't really know how it works. But hi, Cheryl. Hi, Yvette. So let's get going. So the way we're going to try and do this, Cheryl was kind of going to try and interview me or ask me a few questions. They did ask me a few questions in advance for me to get thinking about, but we're going to do our best, and Cheryl's in the chat and is going to try and ask me questions via the chat. But I've got some notes I just quickly made notes about what Cheryl was going to speak to me about, so we could still talk to you today. So welcome, let's get going, a few minutes late. So Cheryl, just give us something to say. It's all working, you can hear me. Hi Mel, yep, you can see us. Hi, lovely to see you. Oh, you've got my first question from Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl. Why did you leave a corporate after such a successful career? Right, well, let me give you the kind of intro into what I did, what I'm now doing, and then we can kind of get into the whys, the lessons, and how I finally made the jump. So yeah, I was in a corporate career for 20 plus years. 10 of those were in, I would say, like big senior leadership positions, leading teams globally. And loving it, always loved that role, you know, loved everything about it, loved, I guess, the colleagues I had, loved the companies I work for, being blessed to work with great people in great companies, and for the most part had really great bosses. Loved the financial security, loved that I travelled all around the world, got to stay in really nice hotels and travel business class. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Now, I often asked myself, was I too long on the hamster wheel? You know, was I too much kind of focused on the corporate role and everything else was kind of out of balance? And I often kind of went to that place and kind of quickly dismissed it. But I think the first thing I would say was, well, no, let me finish kind of what I then did. So then 6 years I was in my last company. So I was Vice President of Transformation at American Express Global Business Travel. And again, loving that role, great company to work for, great people. You know, I liked the fact that I'm interacting with really talented people every day. They inspire me. I was growing every day. I was stretching, always pulling something out of myself that I didn't know was there. So there was nothing missing in that role. And I never had any desires to go, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to set up an own business. That was my identity, that's who I was, that's how I saw myself. And I would say I wasn't trying to run away from anything. You know, I wasn't somebody saying, I hate this 9 to 5, if it was 9 to 5, I hate this corporate role, I wish it was something different, I wish I could go and have something other than this. I was very, very, I wouldn't call it happy because I learned a level of happiness that's different, but I wasn't looking to run away from anything. And I think that's the first point I would make is, if anybody is curious as to like leaving what they're doing now for something else, I would encourage us always to do it from a place of you're doing it because what you're moving towards is more exciting and means more than what you're doing, as opposed to I want something different because I hate what I'm doing. Now that is a motivator, right? And it's a driver, but there's a risk there that you'll jump into something else and hate that as well. So what happened to me was I was in that corporate role at Amex GBT, 2 young kids. So that was kind of the peak of, I guess, my pressure, and my job was bigger than ever. And I came out of a really challenging year leading a really big transformation project globally, all time zones. And I think that's the first time I started to feel burnt out, stressed, physically was showing like some tightness in my chest. And I would say, I know this now, I didn't at the time, you know, in terms of happiness on a 1 to 10, 10 being high, I probably accepted that 5 was okay, and that was just me, you know, like it's just a level. And I'm not meant for like big emotional highs, and I don't get the big emotional lows either. I saw myself as steady. I think looking back, it was more numb. which is definitely nowhere to live. And it wasn't just the corporate role. It wasn't that was making me numb. It was kind of a desire that was missing. That's what I've since learned. So I come out of that big project and I was asked to that, and I was like, oh God, every year it was like, something's got to give, something's got to be different. My life is a million miles an hour and something's got to change. And at the end of that year, I learned our company was about to acquire a really big competitor, and I was being asked to lead the global integration of 2 companies. And it was like the career high, you know, that was the biggest thing I'd ever been asked to do. I was really excited to do it, you know, really enthusiastic about the growth it was going to give me. But it was going to be the opposite of what I needed from a well-being perspective. And at that exact time, I believe we're always where we're meant to be. An old school friend got in touch and said, I think there's something you might be interested in. She knew I was interested in personal development. She'd seen I'd been to some seminars. And long story short, I joined this structured personal development program. And from that moment on, everything started to shift from that point on. And I kind of, well, the first thing I did actually was I smashed that project. So one other piece of advice I would give as well is, even if you're looking to do something new and you're currently doing something different that you would rather not be doing, always give your absolute best to the thing you're doing now. You've got to give your maximum positive energy to the thing you're doing now. That's what I did, and I put all my energy, and I used that structured personal development program to lead that project. I loved it. I felt calm. I didn't have those kind of corporate stressy anxieties creeping up all the time. I felt confident, and the results were amazing. But at the same time, I was getting kind of out my own way. And I was realising that this program starts with kind of, what do you want, what do you want? And I started with a goal of, I want to lead this project really, really well. So I led that project really, really well. But at the same time, I'm kind of, my awareness is shifting. Does that make sense? So what do I mean by that? So I guess I'm thinking differently. I'm starting to understand that actually there's more potential inside of me. I'm starting to realise that the way I defined myself, my identity as a corporate leader in a corporate world with a certain lifestyle, that was just a set of ideas that I was attached to, choices I'd attach myself to, and that with a different way of thinking, I could choose to see myself differently. And that was a breakthrough for me, because you know, when you put yourself in this box and you live in it for so long, you can't even see what's outside of it. So even if you have a nudge of wanting to try something else, be somebody else, contribute something different, which I did, and I'll tell you about that. You have a nudge, you're kind of so locked in this box of who you believe you are, and maybe who others have told you you are, or who you're not, that you kind of, I see it as kind of layers of, I guess, beliefs. Some of them are good, some of them you want, because not all of our beliefs about ourselves are bad, but some of them keep us where we are. And Tony Robbins always says the most powerful force in the human personality is to stay true to who you believe you are. So if who you believe you are isn't in harmony with actually what you want, if you want to change your career, then that's where you start. You don't start with what career do I want. You kind of start with what goal do I want? What do I want to do each day? And then I think a lot of the time as well is, I wasn't in a place where I said, I'd like to change my career. Let me think about what I'm good at. Can I make a career out of that? No, I better stick with what I'm doing then. I think that's what most people do. What else am I good at? What else could I do? Can I make money? No, I'll forget that then. And I didn't do it that way, because what crept up on me was actually, I just started following the signs of what I like to do. So it wasn't this big, here's a nirvana moment, although that came eventually. But to start with, through this structured process of understanding who I was, my paradigms, smashing my paradigm, my belief system wide open, through that process, I was asking myself different questions, and I was saying, how would you love to spend your days? So, and when I was answering that question, I wasn't saying it was a different question. I wasn't saying what can I do to get out of this corporate role? What can I do to change my career? That wasn't my question. My question was, how could I be doing more of what I love? And what I wanted to do was write, and I'd always wanted to write, and I was in my own way from a confidence, you know, who would want to read what I have to say? I'm probably no good at writing, there's no money in it, let's not bother then at all. And then when I ditched all of those excuses and just thought, let's just start writing, I just found a joy that I never thought existed. And I was still in my corporate role, still really busy, still running a million miles an hour. And then I'd be up till midnight just writing articles and I found a passion and a love of doing it. So I kind of followed those strands, and I think that's the other thing. So I didn't have this nirvana moment of this is my purpose, this is my goal. I always say to my clients, kind of follow the breadcrumbs. So I followed an urge to do something that I love to do, and that's all I did. I took a step and started writing. The next thing I followed was an urge I'm passionate about nutrition. So I followed an urge and started a course on nutrition. And one thing led to another, and then I eventually said, actually, I love nutrition. I love this personal development. This structured program has helped me have the year of my career. I was actually probably at the peak of my career when I left, achieving better things than I'd ever achieved, got the best performance review I'd ever got, and then decided to leave. But this structured development program got me to do that, and then secondly, it got me to move in the direction of what I really, really wanted to do. So I'm going to pause a little bit because I'll just talk for 20 more minutes without answering any questions. So let me just see if I've missed anything, and then we can jump into any questions and I can keep going. Sorry about this. Lots of comments. Thank you, guys. Coursing along. Yep. Give your energy to what you're doing now. Yep. Agree with that, Mel. Limiting beliefs. So Cheryl, you're asking me, did I have any limiting beliefs or fears? So my limiting beliefs, I think, well, on the writing front, well, yeah, loads of them. Can I do it? Who wants to read what I've got to say? What am I going to write about? I didn't do an English degree. So belief number one, I'm not good enough in writing. Then when I decided, and I'll kind of get to the point as to how I eventually made that jump, but when I finally decided to become a full-time personal development leader and mindset coach, I think with hindsight, although I had the tools to not allow this to surface, it's a fear of criticism. And I think I've had that all my life, and it manifested itself in my corporate role of trying to be really perfect and trying to be really great, trying to please everybody and be perfect at everything. So I didn't get any. I was aware of feedback, and I'm not naive enough to think that that's not a message and we should fail and understand. And I definitely learned from everything I did, but sometimes to the point where it would just consume me. So the feedback would, it would consume me, and I would live in a place of kind of negativity for a couple of days. So that limiting belief in doing what I now do, which is I have to get really comfortable with putting myself out there, writing, coaching, doing seminars, doing webinars, and I have to get, and I've had to get really comfortable knowing that I might speak to 10 people, 9 people might not like what I've got to say, and 1 person might. And I decided and changed a belief that was fine, and I was okay with that, because with what I now do, I'm not going to reach everybody I'd love to, and I'm not going to resonate for everybody. I'm not for everybody, and everybody's not for me. So I had to realise that that's fine, because if I don't do it, I reach nobody, and I don't help anybody transform their life in the way that I did. So that was one limiting belief, Cheryl. And I think it's not necessarily a negative belief, this, but I guess the boxes I had myself in about who my identity had to change. I couldn't just say I want this alternative life and start moving in the direction of it, because all of the voices in my head about, well, you're in a corporate role, you're a leader of people, that's what you do, that's who you are. Like identifying with the beliefs about who I thought I was so strongly would have stopped me going for it. They would have absolutely stopped me going for it. And in actual fact, when I eventually said I want to help people transform their lives in every area of their life, because it started with just nutrition, and I decided to train to do what I'm doing, even then I hadn't made the committed decision. I decided I'll do it alongside what I'm doing now, and at worst I've just spent a load of money on my own development and it'll make me a better leader. That's where I was. But I remember the moment I made the committed decision. I remember the moment I was in Canada as part of my training, and I just thought, you know what, I'm so far and passionate about what I want to do. I can't generate the passion for my corporate job anymore that I know I need. And when I hit that point, I thought it's not fair to stay in the corporate role and lead people and do that job. And it's not my purpose now. And I'm not saying my purpose up until that point was wrong. It's just different now. And interestingly enough, Cheryl, I think you asked me, you know, did I have signs? Did I ignore them? You can connect the dots looking back, can't you? That's what Steve Jobs always says, you can connect the dots looking back. I could say to myself, 20 years ago, I listened to Tony Robbins' Get the Edge box set. It was like a personal development mind mastery program. And I believe that's why I enjoyed the corporate career I did, because I just shifted everything in myself about my beliefs, my potential. And I had a 20-year really great successful corporate career. And when I learned about Tony Robbins at that point, I thought, I didn't know this was a career. I want to do that. But it was a nanosecond. And I buried it and I was like, I can't do that. I'm not Tony Robbins. He's really funny. He's American. He's on the stage. And I killed that idea. But I don't regret killing that idea at all, because I've loved my corporate career, and I believe everything happens when it's meant to happen, not before. It happens as it should. And I don't think it should have happened differently. I think where I am now, it's given me so much. In fact, I did an exercise which you might want to do yesterday. 50 things you're grateful for from your old job or your old career. And it's 50 because when you get to 20, you then have to start really thinking and getting creative. But I did that exercise and I realised that that corporate career I've got so much to be grateful for. The experience, the lessons, just the technical skills, the practical skills, the communication skills. You know, I wouldn't change that. But then I would say, Cheryl, I kind of ignored some clues later on. So I think probably 2 to 3 years before I actually got clear, I read back on some journals and I went to another seminar of Tony Robbins and wrote down 3 things. I wrote down I want to help people, I want to write, and I want to have more time with the family, kind of more, it was still along the balance. And I put that workbook in a drawer for 2.5 years and I didn't do anything with it. And then I found this Thinking into Results personal development program that I now teach people. And I did kind of similar exercises, you know, what would you love to be doing? And I wrote down the same things and I started moving in that direction. And then I'd forgot completely that I'd wrote that down at the Tony Robbins seminar. And at some point, for some reason, I got the workbook from the seminar out and I opened it to that page and I was like, oh, I told myself 2.5 years ago this is what I wanted to do. I ignored that. But do you know why that is? Why we do that? It's because you kind of immediately can't see the house. I was like, I want to help people. Well, you entertain it for like 10 minutes. Or I want to write, maybe I could. Nah. And you kill the idea before it goes anywhere. In my case, I wasn't even allowing it to be a seed to be planted. But once it's planted, what I now teach is you can't. I think there's a bit of myth that we wake up and we have this nirvana moment about our purpose. If you're lucky and that happens, great, go for it. For me, and if you're still kind of looking for that, it might sound a bit cheesy, purpose, what do you really want to be doing? Just start by doing what you want to do each day. Doing a little bit of what you love and follow that. So if you think, well, I've got this big goal, a big dream, how do I get from there to there? Just pick one thing and take a little step towards it. Let me check some more questions. Felt numb. Getting out your own way. Yep, thanks, Joe. Totally. Get out your own way. Explore where your mind is thinking. Yeah. And follow the nudge. I love that, Joe, completely. One thing I'm really strengthening is my intuition, to get quiet and follow the nudge. And I think if I'd done that sooner or known that that was a thing, I would have been on this path sooner. Start with a goal you want. Yep. Start with what you love. Follow the breadcrumbs. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. You're doing brill. How easy was it to leave the security of a well-paid job? Mel, it's a really great question. And with what I now practice and what I now teach, I wouldn't even call it belief, but my knowing is so strong about the way what I do now will manifest itself in helping people, in generating a successful business for me to enjoy. I got my belief and my knowing there before making that change. I didn't kind of have to go, I'm really, really scared, I'm going to do it anyway and see. I kind of got my belief there. So how did I do that? So what I show people through a kind of structured approach to do is you start with really powerfully imagining. So I encourage people to just imagine how they spend their days. So even if you're not sure what you want to do, but you want something different, just start quite generic. How do you spend your days? You know, am I at home? Am I traveling? Am I in an office? Am I physical? Am I in front of a computer? Am I speaking to people? Do I work alone? You know, do I spend time with family? What do I drive? Where do I live? And it starts that generic. And I start with that, and then you kind of build on that, and then that generates maybe some ideas start to pop, and you follow a lead. Like I'd say, oh, I'd love to spend my time journaling and writing. Okay, well, let's follow that one. Or I'd love to, one of my early goals was I want to work 3 days a week and spend the other 2 days free to write, create, and be with the kids. It was as generic as that. And in that time, at that time, I was still 3 days in my corporate job, in my vision. But I get my clients to create a really powerful vision, and this is what I did. You create, but you don't just create it once, you kind of live there. So you assume the feeling. This is important. It's not just intellectualizing. It's assuming the feeling that you already have the thing that you want. So when it comes to me leaving the corporate job that's well paid, it doesn't matter, because I'm already assuming the feeling and living from the state of mind of, it's okay because I've already got a successful business of my own. Does that make sense? Mel. Let me flip forward because there's lots of comments, you guys. Hey, Janine. Tip 7, your belief. Yep, thank you. How far will you get before you run out? Oh, that's to Donna. Yeah, Heather, from a practical point of view, absolutely. I would advise that. If you do want to leave something to do something else, I think you've got a couple of options, haven't you? You can kind of do it safely, do one thing part-time and make sure your part-time can pay your bills. Have 6 to 12 months of your bills paid in the bank, because there's nothing, I think there'd be nothing worse than jumping and then it's okay having a beautiful image of living the life that you know is coming, if really you've got kind of the worry of the reality of, well, actually the money actually isn't in my bank account yet. So I think it would help, obviously, from a practical point of view, but also from a mindset point of view, to know that you can just relax and enjoy. Because if you're going to spend 12 months stressed and worried, you're not going to grow any kind of successful business from that state. You need to be growing it from a feeling of relaxed certainty, knowing. But it helps if you've actually got the bills paid, doesn't it? So yes, practically. Hey Mel, yeah, I've done the visualization, but don't know what the next step would be. Can you add a bit more, Mel? And Cheryl, just tell me how we're doing for time, because I think we said 30 minutes, and we might be up. I'm not sure. I can't see. I don't know how to turn. I don't turn this off in case I cock the live up. Okay, I can't see your question. I just wanted some more information on your question, Mel. You're saying, I've done the visualization but don't know what the next step would be. And I just wanted to know, do you mean you've thought about what you want but you haven't done anything about it yet? Or what the next step would be in terms of manifestation? Is it the practical side or more the thinking side? Okay, thanks, Cheryl. So 5 more minutes I've got, just to keep people... So if there's any other questions coming in, I'll watch them. Just let me see, because I made some notes on what you guys wanted me to speak about. Oh, Mel, so I'm in a role which is okay, but want to branch out as a coach. Okay. So it's difficult to really give you a lot of input, Mel, with, because we're not, it's just comments in a chat. But if I can try and pick up the thread of where I think you are, then so in a row, it's okay, but you've got a desire to do something else and be a coach. So I think we'll break it into two parts. And on the manifestation side, it's visualizing what you really want. And I think where most people miss a step with the visualization is probably maybe one or two things. So the visualization is powerful. So who is this person? What can I feel? What can I see? What can I hear? And go there all the time. That's the key. Live there often and go there emotionally. If we're just going there in our intellectual minds, then it's not going to happen. And then the other thing is, there's a quote from, it's not really a quote, but it's just a phrase I remember from a book, The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. And he says, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So you have to feel like that person. So there's something I'd suggest you do, Mel, and anybody else who wants to try this, is if you've got a goal and you've got a picture of what that goal is, you can think about what that goal is. You've got to think, right, who am I when I've got the goal? How do I think when this picture of what I want is here and I'm enjoying it every single day? What does that person think about? How am I feeling every day? What are the kind of actions I'm taking? And then there's an exercise you can do, is write down, and it's 50 again, 50 things. So write your goal at the top of a sheet of paper. I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm a successful coach, earning, helping X number of people. And then assume the feeling of you already with that goal. And then ask yourself, right, the me of that, in receipt of that goal, write 50 things you're going to do. So maybe imagine like a typical day or a week or a month, and write down the things that you'll do when you've got that goal. So it's kind of your identity of you with the goal. So write down your identity of you with the goal. So you might think, I don't know, I'm going to go shopping I'm going to look for a new house as soon as I've earned $1 million. Or it could be, I'm going to book a spa day. I'm going to have a cleaner twice a week. Write 50 things down that would be synchronized with your identity once you've achieved the goal. Once you've done that, get a highlighter and go through and highlight any of those things that you could do now. And you'll be surprised. There'll be quite a lot on there that you could take action towards now. And that sends a lot of power out from you to the universe. It sends a message to yourself to say, I'm serious and this is me taking steps forward mentally. But there'll be some practical things. So for example, if you said, I want a housekeeper every day once I've got this business and money, you might say, well, I can't do that right now, but why don't I start by having somebody do a job for me, my ironing for an hour a week? You take a step towards the you with your goal. So that's on the manifestation side, Mel. But I think in terms of actions, like physical actions, I do something, it's dead simple. Write out 6 goal-achieving activities that you're going to take each day. Right, every night before you go to bed, 6 goal-achieving activities. Nothing to do with your normal to-do list, nothing to do with your normal job. And they could be tiny, right? It could be put a post out, research something. So every day, and you might get to 3 or 4 of them. That's why that's 6. It's so you'll at least get to 3 or 4 of them. So every day you're focused on your goal from not just a visualization point of view, but from a practical point of view, because you actually have to move into action. So for me in the early days, it was, I was visualizing being a writer. I was visualizing personal development and nutrition. So I'll have had things on there like research nutrition courses. And then the next week it would be sign up to a nutrition course. Just take those steps. And that's what I mean by following the breadcrumbs. Take action. Dip your toe forward. Because if you're going to stay still, then you'll stay still. You can't just stay still thinking. You got to take a step forward. And it might be the wrong step, but you won't know unless you take the step. So that's what I would say as well. Hopefully that helps, Mel. God, there's so many comments, but I think we're probably up at time. Cheryl, give me a nudge. Joe, I love this. Writing out the steps, writing out the tips. Have I got anything else to... Well, let me try and wrap up then, unless there's anything. I'll watch the comments after, and then if anything comes in. What else did I not cover? Let's see what it was. I don't know. I think I've said this, but I think if I could leave you with one thing, it would be, don't expect that the thing you want will grow on its own, right? So what we sometimes do is we kind of entertain a dream and we say, I'd love to do this, and we have an idea for a business or something different we'd like to do, and we get really excited. We talk to other people, they get excited, but at that point, we're only intellectualizing it. So we can get excited, we can dream, because we're not taking it serious at that point. We're just playing around with it in our intellectual mind. The minute we start to actually seriously entertain it and internalize it and feel it, we start to get scared, because the voice inside starts to talk to us, and that's a crap idea, you'll never make any money, how are you going to get from there to there, question. And that'll happen, and it happens with everybody, and you've probably had it happen in your own life. And then what was the best idea in the world, 2 days later you're like, what was I thinking? So what you need to do is you have to cultivate the idea every single day. So when I say plant the seed, so you'll have an idea seed, plant it, at least allow it to be planted in your subconscious mind, and play around with it, think about it, dream. Even if it makes you feel comfortable, just to stay in, this might happen. Just suppose, ask yourself that, just suppose this happened. Just suppose I could go and be this coach, Mel. Just suppose I could have this business I want. Entertain it that way. Then start to really visualize it and take some action steps towards it. But it's really important to connect to why you want it. And I think Joe said this on the live yesterday. Connect to why you want it every day. Go there emotionally. Because you have to keep the fire alive to start with. You have to keep the flame burning of the goal. Otherwise, the doubts will win. The doubts will win, and the inner voice of fear will win. But once you keep that goal alive every day, or the idea alive, eventually it doesn't need any will, because it takes on a life of its own. And then you don't have to really, you continue to keep the flame alive and water the seed, but it will pull you. So you won't have to drag yourself out of bed. You'll be pulled out of bed. You'll be working on it, because it'll have a life of its own. But you have to give it life, and you have to give it life by keeping it alive every day, by thinking about it, connecting to it, taking steps forward. The minute you stop doing that, that little voice, that paradigm, the belief system, the thoughts that you've had for 30 years about who you believe you are will start to win. And that's why a lot of us abandon our ideas. And I did. Our idea in a drawer for 2.5 years. That's what we do. So let us look at the comments and see if we need to wrap up. We could go on forever about this. It should be interactive. Cultivate the idea every day. Yes. Thanks, Mel. Yep. Okay. Thanks, Cheryl. So, Cheryl, I guess we'll wrap it up. This was my first proper live through the solar system, so thanks for the opportunity. And thanks everybody for tuning in, and hopefully I can read the comments afterwards, because I couldn't read them all as we were going through. So have a lovely rest of the day. Hope that's been somewhat useful for people. Speak to you soon. See you later.